Flipkart has decided to pull out of its discussions with Airtel to start its services exclusively on the Airtel Zero platform that would have given preferential access to Flipkart. This clearly coming after immense backlash that we saw on social media, with over 3 lakh emails being sent to Telecom regulator TRAI. Of course, Telecom regulator TRAI's consultation paper has also come under immense criticism from people who have questioned the fact that the regulatory regime in India is moving away from the overall spirit of net neutrality. But today, the big decision coming from Flipkart that says that it wants to go ahead and protect and uphold internet freedom and net neutrality. We heard from the Flipkart management just a short while ago, where they said that not only are they walking away from discussions with Airtel, but going forward, they are also hoping that they will be able to do whatever they can to support the cause and will be upholding the overall concept and theme of net neutrality. This, as we said, after tremendous backlash that we saw on the internet, on social media, against the recommendations of Telecom regulator TRAI as well as the decision of Flipkart. Joining me now is Mukesh Bansal of Flipkart. Mr. Bansal, many thanks for speaking to us here on NDTV. Let me start by asking you, what prompted your decision to actually pull out of your discussions with Airtel to partner with their Airtel Zero platform? Was it entirely driven by the kind of backlash we saw over the last few days?
Absolutely not. I think we just we looked into zero rating program deeply, and we felt that in the long term it can lead to violation of some of the spirit of net neutrality. As a company, we very deeply believe in the principles of net neutrality. That's one of the big reasons why e-commerce has grown in the country as much as it has, and it has a long way to go. So for us, it's very important to make sure that internet grows in a manner where it is democratic, equally accessible, and absolutely no discrimination of any kind. And really, driven from those principles and beliefs, we decided to back out of this program.
Mr. Bansal, we've seen in the past few days immense criticism and reaction coming in to the entire concept of net neutrality and to your decision to actually partner with Airtel. Your own consumers, your own users have actually downrated your application. Did it come as a bit of a shock to you, the fact that you saw such a sharp reaction coming in from consumers to your decision?
See, as a company, we are always listening to our consumers, and in this case, we are actually aligned with our consumers. There is no disconnect whatsoever. Flipkart, if anything, our entire DNA is about consumer first. Everything we decide is driven from what's right for our consumers. So we are more than happy to engage in a dialogue with our consumers, listen to them, which we do anyway, all the time. In this case, we, on one hand, we knew that a program like this can make internet accessible to large majority of consumers, and therefore we even consider this seriously. But realizing what it means for net neutrality, we just felt that it's not going to be the right thing for future of internet in the country, right? And that is what led us to our decision of not participating in this.
So can we in many ways say it was an error of judgment on part of Flipkart, or was it lack of understanding of the concept and how it would impact net neutrality? How would you explain your position earlier, where you had actually gone ahead and even defended the fact that you were planning to tie up with Airtel for the Airtel Zero platform?
There is some confusion. We never defended this. What we have commented in the past, that there are a lot of precedent of various other foreign companies offering all kind of services where data is subsidized, and we just felt that us continuing to have those services available is in some ways discriminatory, and that's not appropriate. This is while we were looking into this deeply. It is a complex subject with a lot of ramifications, and it took us some time to understand what it means for our consumers. But in the end, we took the right decision that's right for both the future of internet in the country and for our consumers.
Bansal, this is Rajiv Makhni. Congratulations on taking this decision. But, to a lot of people, what you're saying right now may not really go down very well. You and your company became the poster boys for Airtel Zero. In fact, you were the ones that were given the most amount of showcasing that Flipkart is already part of it and everything else. And now it's a sudden turnaround to a lot of people that will say, of course, you're customer driven and this customer backlash has made it happen. What would you say to all those people who won't just take this statement of yours and just believe it?
I think there is a lot of miscommunication and misinformation out there. I think some of the big decisions require right amount of deliberation. We need to understand deeply, and as I said earlier, we would like to see a day where internet is available to every Indian, and we will also try to support programs that makes it easy and affordable for people to access internet for all that activities. So it's really from that lens we are evaluating whether it can serve a larger purpose without violating net neutrality. But as we looked into deeply and we played out a lot of scenarios, what can possibly happen if you were to go ahead with this, and we realized that it can set a precedent for some scenarios to emerge in future, which will not make which will violate the spirit of net neutrality. So the decision is really driven from this analysis. Yes, it took us some time to do this analysis, and but we want to make sure in all big decisions we are very deliberate, we have a right dialogue internally, and we listen to voice our consumers, and we'll continue to do so in future as well.
Okay, Mr. Bansal, two quick reactions from you. One, are you and Flipkart and Airtel, will they still remain friends now that you walked off? And the second one, of course, is you're saying you're now going to commit to really support net neutrality. Can you tell me one thing that you may well be doing for that?
Yeah, so I think we work with all kind of large players in the internet telco space, right? And that is not going to change. In terms of supporting net neutrality, I think one is we are going to participate in this dialogue fairly openly. We'll share our point of view and also how our inputs into how regulations should be shaped, right? So we will make sure our voice is heard and also represented from the point of view of millions of Indian users who use internet daily, who use internet for shopping transactions, and some of the policies which would make it easier for most of India to get access to internet in future.
In hindsight, Mr. Bansal, do you feel this is one of the biggest mistakes perhaps that Flipkart made in a long time? We know what happened with the Big Billion Day. We know that how consumers can really drive strategies of companies, especially online companies going forward. In hindsight, do you see this as one of the biggest mistakes made by Flipkart in a long time?
No, absolutely not. Right? This, we have not done really anything. Considering a policy or considering a program is not a mistake. In our regular course of affairs, we look into a lot of things. We get all kind of proposals. We evaluate, as I was saying, that we really want internet to become accessible to all of India. We will continue to evaluate every such possibility, but ensuring that we pick things which are compliant with all laws of the country, as well as which are not discriminatory and equally accessible. So I don't think so. We made any mistake at all in this case.
Mr. Bansal, would you differentiate between what many telecom operators are trying to drive home is zero rating services being different from net neutrality? Do you believe zero rating services actually disrupts in many ways the spirit of net neutrality?
Yeah, I understand the intent behind zero rating, right? And there is a case to be made of why it will make it easier for a lot of people to access internet for the first time. But then there are other ways in which zero rating can evolve, which can possibly make it discriminatory or unaffordable for smaller companies, or make the data more expensive. And from that perspective, it's certainly violates the spirit of net neutrality and primary reason why we are choosing to not opt in.
Mr. Bansal, one quick follow-up question from me on the same thing. So at one time you said that you were actually in talks with Airtel Zero just because of the fact that more people that don't have access to the internet or maybe don't have the money to get a data package would be able to get onto the internet. And now that you're saying that you've reevaluated the whole thing, you don't believe it's in the true spirit of net neutrality. A lot of people would say that's very confusing for most people, because at the end of the day, more people actually can come onto the net if they're not paying for the data. So what is it that really made you change your mind this dramatically?
If you play out the scenarios, right, when consumers are not paying for the data, and there could be scenarios where the data is charged differently, or some people have access to being able to provide that service while other people are not, and those are going to be very discriminatory scenarios. So far I have not seen anything that anyone wanting to do that, but even any program which at least makes that possibility open in future is not something we'll want to support.
Okay, and my last question, of course, is, so have you walked out of talks? There was a lot of conversation going on that you're one of the first signees and you already are signed on to Airtel Zero. So are you now walking away from that, or were you still just in conversation?
We are not participating in this zero rating program at all.
Mr. Bansal, going forward, what will be your advice to regulators and policymakers? Because as we know, internet and the e-commerce industry is a nascent industry in India. It's an evolving industry, and regulators are really looking at forming a new architecture. On the regulatory front, what will be your advice to TRAI, to other policymakers at a time when we've seen tremendous backlash, not only on the concept of net neutrality, but some of the other very, very surprising and bizarre suggestions that have come out in the TRAI consultation paper?
I think our advice will be twofold, right? One is to ensure that we shape the policy in a way where internet continues to be absolutely democratic, equal access to everyone, equal charge for data no matter who is paying for or what services they are paying for, and also no discrimination at all between foreign companies and Indian companies. I think if we should have policies where we treat everybody equally, and the data subsidization, if at all, should be very transparent and visible to everyone. We should not have different policy for different players in the space.
Okay, I did say it was my last question, but I have one more, Mr. Bansal. So now that you're out of it and Flipkart was truly the poster boy for this entire Airtel Zero, do you believe Airtel Zero now will just end up as a zero? Will they also have to back out, or you think they will just carry on?
That's not my place to say. I think Airtel can decide on their own. They will have their own considerations. So I really don't have any comments on that.
All right, Mr. Bansal,
Thank you.
Mr. Bansal, just a quick last word on the entire concept of internet.org, the fact that there are other similar outshoots of what some are calling zero rating services, some actually term it as a philanthropy of making sure that they're increasing internet penetration. Do you think there's a need to actually review and relook at those concepts as well?
Absolutely. I think any service where data is subsidized someone in not an open, transparent way should be looked into it. I think net neutrality is all about absolutely democratic, open, transparent, non-discriminatory availability of internet, and some such service absolutely needs to be looked into.
Mr. Bansal, will you be coordinating?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I know you have to go. Just a last question: if you will be coordinating with other online players as well, and what is the overall view of the industry? Because many people had come out, whether it is your competitors or other online entrepreneurs, they had actually come out quite clearly and backed the concept of net neutrality. Can we say now it's really the online players, the online e-commerce players versus the telecom industry? Is that something that's going to emerge here on, now that you've taken such a bold stand and a bold move of actually pulling out of your talks?
Our decision is primarily based on the principles and the values we believe in, as well as the inputs that we get from our consumers, right? So that's really we will continue to do what's in the best interest of our consumers and in line with the values which are very important for us as an organization. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Mukesh Bansal, we're going to let you go. Thanks so much for speaking to us here on NDTV and sharing your perspective. Thanks so much, Rajiv, for joining us. As you can hear, that was Mukesh Bansal of Flipkart talking to NDTV about reasons that led to the online player pulling out of its talks with the telecom major Airtel for offering services that would have given it preferential treatment. So it's a bold, strong move, a U-turn in many ways, but something that supports the overall cause of net neutrality.